The Chromacopia tour was great, but was it better than the GNX tour? YouTube face? I'm dropping 2 videos today, and it's something of a social experiment. I want to see what is more powerful in the algorithm and in life. Is it love or is it hate? These are the 2 forces I'm most interested in. You have clicked on love, okay? Well, I'm going to be talking about Tyler, the Creator, and Lil Yachty's concert review and the time I had with my daughter going up to the show, a whole travelogue. But if you're interested in that hate, well, I've also released, around the exact same time, a video on the new song by Drake and Central C. All right, so what do you choose? What forces do you want to win? All right, because eventually, this right here is what ties back to the soul, and this is the hand that slew Abel. All those things, we're going to see what wins today. So let's get into love, huh? Let's get into love. Let's be happy. The sun's rising on my face. It's quite gentle right here. The birds are in the back. They're getting ready. And I'm going to tell you about the Chromacopia show. I am going to answer that question. Is it better than the GNX tour with Kendrick Lamar and SZA? As always, I'm going to do a little bit of a travelogue so you kind of get into what it was like going to the show. I am interested primarily in the artistic merit of the actual concert, but also I think it's entertaining when I hear people tell stories. So I'll tell you the story of what it was like, all right? And it is the story of myself and my daughter, who really loves rap music, loves hip-hop, and especially loves Tyler, the Creator, which I've come to realize, what it was like for us to go. Now, we weren't even really planning on going. We weren't really sure. I didn't really have tickets, and it's really kind of it's a little bit tricky right now, especially the idea of crossing the border. I wasn't super into it. But, we live in Rochester, New York. And if you look at right now on Waze, it'll tell you that Toronto is 2 hours and 50 minutes away from Rochester, New York. Don't you believe them? It is never 2 hours and 50 minutes. By the time we arrived there, we left at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It became a 4.5-hour trip. But that's okay. It's okay. My daughter made a Tyler playlist for me. I don't really know his Call Me If You Get Lost, his pre-Igor work very well. I'm vaguely aware of it. I sort of know it, but not really, right? I wasn't paying attention to new music back then. If you've been following the channel, you know that. So, she was sort of the big fan who was showing that to me, and we're driving and we're having a nice time. And then I get to customs, and I always pick the wrong lane. Always. Either you stay in the lane that you chose and you just kind of just deal with it, or you switch lanes, whichever one it is. I went to lane 4, never go to lane 4. I don't know what happened, but it just took forever. And then the thing happens every time I cross the border. I mean, have you ever watched Severance? Where you go down this elevator and all of a sudden your mind gets wiped and you forget everything. Every time I cross the border, I forget. Skye, do not eat at the A&W, the first A&W over the border after crossing the border. Okay, I know you like root beer, you like hamburgers and hot dogs and such, and you've had some good memories drinking A&W root beer, but don't go there. I definitely don't go there and order something called the Mama Burger. Oh man, it was bad. And then I left it in the car overnight. And then I got into the car the next morning, and it just smelled like rancid ketchup. Oh my God! Even the root beer was watery. Anyways, little anti-commercial. I'm sure I'll go there again. And then you drive into Toronto, and I do want to take just 1 second because I talk a fair amount about Toronto, and I realized what is it that bugs me about going to Toronto. Now listen, this is not hate. Okay, this is not hate. I love Canada. I have a deep love of going to Canada. And I have a deep love of Toronto. I've been going there for, I don't know. It was the first place I ever visited with my family back in 1986. I saw the Rogers Centre be constructed from the CN Tower. Okay? It's probably the city I've visited the most in my life without living there. But something's happened over the last couple decades. And it reminds me of what Gertrude Stein and Joan Didion how they described Oakland, as there's no there. And as I was driving through Toronto, I finally had the way of describing it. It is a never-ending thisness. There's a certain ineffable thisness, a this quality, a sort of like a well-designed, well-thought-out, well-appointed, tall condominium, luxury condominium, and these buildings start like 30 minutes outside of Toronto, and you just, it's just sort of like never, and they just get more concentrated the closer you get to the center, to the point where you're in the middle of the city, and it feels like every single bit of surface has been terraformed by luxury condominiums. And I think what it is that I think I remember the old Toronto, and it's not like, I know it. I'm not claiming that, but I've been to the old Maple Leaf Gardens. I saw them lose a hockey game there a long time ago. I think it was against the Avalanche. I've gone to the Art Gallery of Ontario many times back when they used to have the Klaus Oldenburg hamburger. They took that out, So I don't know. Maybe that's just it. There's a kind of modern, uncanny feeling. But that makes sense, right? It's such a rich place. And I even stayed in one of those buildings. I ended up staying in a hotel called 21 Ice Boat Terrace, which is like this little tiny shoebox of a studio apartment. It was quite nice. We arrived there. Again, we were supposed to get there at 6. We ended up arriving at the hotel at 7:30, but it was nice. It was just about a 1-mile walk from the Scotiabank Arena. We walk past this little ice cream place. We watch all these people, pedestrians. It's great. It's a very cosmopolitan city, which I really enjoy. And there's this beautiful train yard museum, which is a very cool idea, because that's what the CN Tower stands for, Canada National, the name of the train yard. Very cool. And we arrive at the Scotiabank, and again, let's give more praise to Toronto. They put Scotiabank there, right? Or what it used to be called? Air Canada? They put Air Canada there. They put that place there. And they could have put it somewhere else. They could have put it, I don't know, in Mississauga or Hamilton or Burloak, right? But they put it right in the dead center of the city, and they successfully recreated the kind of feeling that you get going to Madison Square Garden. That feeling of like, it's sort of like sucking you in, like the city like is pushing you and funneling you towards this one location. Now that said, hey, Scotiabank Arena, I got floor seats. I don't think I've ever bought floor seats for a show this century. and they're like, we went to 4 separate entrances until we found the proper entrance. We were just walking all over the place, but that's fine. And we finally get in, and I had this weird experience where like they consider floor seats to be premium. So we're going into the premium entrance. And this was the first time. This is not a commercial. Every single time I've ever looked at StubHub, it was just as expensive as Ticketmaster. Every single time, except for this one time. Like last week, I got tickets for like $100 to be on the floor. The Tyler the Creator show. It was cheaper than if I was to sit down. So it was great. I got it. I have to say that like floor shows are better. You want to hear an old man sentence? Floor shows are better this century than they were last century, because these boutique, these luxury concerts, like they really make an effort to move around and move through the floor, so that when you're on the floor, it has this diffuse quality where if you're willing to just walk a little bit, I was never more than like 10 feet. Okay, I was never more than 20 feet, really, from Tyler the entire show. And I wasn't even trying that hard. You just sort of follow his movement, and there's enough people dispersed all the way throughout that it was a really, really worth it experience for that. Speaking of worth it, my daughter said, can I please buy a bottle of water? I'm like, I feel like such a sucker, man. I'm not going to buy a bottle of water, but that's okay. That's okay. We'll buy a bottle of water. And we go there, and the guy's like, yeah, well, we have to pour it in a cup. I'm like, again? Same thing happened to GNX show. The same excuse. Oh, you're going to have to blame the artists. They don't want anyone throwing up on stage. No, it can't be. It can't be. But anyways, so he said, scrap that. We'll just get Sprite, as I always do. So let's talk about the show, all right? Let's get into the show. Let's get into my great love of the show and Lil Yachty. Now, you might be saying there, Skye, Paris, Texas opened up for Tyler, the Creator, and they were great. And I'm sure they were. I love their energy. I've reviewed one of their albums. I like Paris, Texas. I was excited to see them in concert. Charge it to the game, everybody. Charge it to driving to Toronto. because I was trying to get there at 6. I built in, an extra hour to get there on time, but I didn't build in the extra hour and a half. So we get there and Lil Yachty shows up. Now listen, you might know me, and some people apparently very much do, know me as a Drake hater and a Kendrick stan and a hip hop snob. And by those criteria, I'm supposed to hate Lil Yachty. But I'm the opposite. I love Lil Yachty. I think he deserves way more credit than he gets. I think when the book is written on this phase of hip hop, that he's going to be cited as like one of the most interesting, most kind of vital and enjoyable characters in hip hop. Like I really think that. So when I tell you I was excited to see the show, that's what I mean. That said, I'm not sure this is the right place for him. I'm not sure this is the right way to see Lil Yachty. I'm not sure Lil Yachty can be anything other than a headliner. Did he come and play my college in 2018? And did I not go because it's weird to go and be around students while you're a professor? Yeah, I regret it. Okay, I really regret it. But there's some really great things about what he did. One of them is he raps every word. So there's a track, right? So he's just rapping along to a CD, which is one of the things I don't love about modern rap shows, is just rapping over your CD. But he rapped every word, like very insistently. He rapped every single word. He was working super duper hard. I think his sort of general presentation is very cool because you probably think of him as, you probably think of the XXL freestyle. You probably think of that. You probably think of the crazy hair. You think a little. No, he just had this like headband. He just had this awesome style. My daughter informed me that he was aura farming, and he made Shants look cool. Do you know how hard it is to make Shants look cool? Those are shorts that are also pants, and pants that are also shorts. He had kind of all these layers. He had a really cool sort of aura, like my daughter said. But I don't think it was quite the right way to see him. I will say that it might seem incongruous. It might seem that Lil Yachty and Tyler, the Creator, shouldn't go together. But I think there's a lot more similarities than differences between them. I mean, they are both odd. They both follow their own artistic vision, regardless of critical feedback. They both sing. They both rap. And Yachty is more lyrical than you think, and Tyler is more vibes than you think. So I think they really do go quite well together. There's also this kind of lion theme that I see. So Lil Yachty was on the second stage, which is basically a box the size of this porch. It's like maybe 15 by 15. And he felt like, and he sort of moved like a lion in a cage. Like the way that he kind of rapped and kind of moved, it almost felt like he was, just like testing the borders, testing the fences, right? And then Tyler, as we'll get into, he was sort of like just a lion in the wild, alternating between periods of intense, savage action and repose and calm and sleeping. Because as you know, lions spend most of their life sleeping. Right. Anyways, let's get back to Yachty. He had an interesting sort of kind of short arm dance. I don't know. Speaking of Jurassic Park, he kind of had sort of a little sort of T-Rex thing going. At one point, he was kind of sitting there and sticking out his tongue. It was cool. Like I have had some interactions with Yachty through message, so that was very exciting. So I was kind of wondering, I told him that I was going to be at the show, and he gave that a thumbs up or a heart, whichever one that is. That's very exciting. So I was right there. I was basically in the front row, and a couple times I swear he was looking at me. I swear, And then he made this really weird face at me, and then I realized there's like a hot chick in a bikini next to me. And he wasn't looking at me. What are you gonna do, But there's this great a cappella bit, which I think was really important because he just kind of showed off his real skill. You know, it was before Broccoli, before everyone sort of started singing along to all of the songs, and just showed off his real skill. Also, much like Tyler, he loves woofing into the microphone. Woof. He's really into woofing. He really is. He tried really hard to get the mosh pit going. I was not interested in going in the mosh pit. I used to. I did. I used to mosh pit a lot. You know, go see Sam Black Church at the Channel in Boston in 1991. You know, that kind of stuff. I used to mosh. Back before I got an arrow in the knee. Video games. Memes. New, fresh memes. But she said that it was the lamest mosh pit she's ever been in, and that's including the World Boy Scout Jamboree. So anyway, it was a pretty weak mosh pit, and that's why I think you really need a different venue for Yachty, because he gets pretty turned, and you need to have space for that, and it's really hard as an opening act to get people turned because they are waiting for the main guy. But anyways, there's very little auto-tune in his set, which I really enjoyed. There's one little detail that I really felt the need to mention, which is the guy who was mixing him was like this guy, straight out of Central Casting. If you've ever worked in theater or know people who work in theater, he's like a white guy, kind of balding, has a goatee, just looks like, it could just be absolutely anybody. But he straight up mouthed every single word of the entire Lil Yachty set. And it just made me happy. It makes me happy when people love what they do. It makes me happy that this guy was sitting there, and you would never peg him as a Yachty fan or a rap fan or anything, right? You just sort of think that guy's just in the AV club. But he was just going right along. And that was something I really loved. He showed real gratitude towards everybody being there and singing along. The funny thing about Lil Yachty, I think he's one of those people where most of the audience didn't realize how many Lil Yachty songs they knew. So they were kind of sitting there, and then he'd do a song, and you'd sort of feel a collective, oh, he does that song? Like a collective, oh, he does that song each time. And it was great. It was very nice to see. It did a great job of warming everybody up and getting us ready for Chromacopia. Let's have a little interlude, shall we? So my daughter wanted to be as close as she could to the front, and so I went with her. We set up a rendezvous point. We wouldn't end up using it, but we set a rendezvous point by the trash can on the left. That was our rendezvous point. If that goes absolutely south, we will meet on at the Starbucks on York Street. So we were I don't know, 4 people back from the railing. Very cool. And then eventually I sit down because I'm an old man and I can do it. And other people are doing it, so I'm going to sit down. So I'm going to preserve my energy for the show. And while I'm there, just for fun, it's 9:00. And if you didn't know, on Friday, Drake announced that at 9:00 he's going to be doing something. There's going to be something happening. And so I'm sitting there, and it is literally 9:00, and I'm waiting. I'm just like, all right, let's go. Let's see what this is, because I'm actually in the 5+1. I am in the 12 divided by 2. I'm in the 6 right there. I'm a 6 god at this point. I'm sitting down on the floor, so I check on YouTube. It's like some weirdness. I don't know what's going on. I check on it, and eventually I go, okay, I'll go to the Drizzy Reddit, and that's what's going to inspire my other video. So here's a little teaser for what that looks like. Okay. I pull up Reddit, and this was the top post, saying, and there I am, and I'm figuring, oh, well, that's funny, but I'm nobody, right? I'm nobody compared to these people. I'm sure they're not specifically talking about me. And then the number one comment is this guy saying that he hates me the way Lex Luthor hates Superman. So if you find that interesting, go check out my hate video. I'm going to go into that more into detail. But hey, here's a piece of advice. If you're going to insult me, don't call me Superman, because that makes me feel cool. All right. So I'm sitting there. I'm kind of imagining, maybe some people know who I am, but there's a fair amount of chance. And so I was kind of laughing, like people watching me, like look at hate comments on Reddit, like while they're, how YouTube can you get? So we're getting there. We're getting ready for the set. It's this beautifully set up set. Skye, dude. Maybe if you wrote scripts, you wouldn't say things like a beautifully set up set. I'm upset. I'm upset. It's a Drake lyric. I'm upset. It's a good Drake lyric. I like that one. So there's like these container ships painted all green with a giant Chromacopia, and it has a monumentality that is just amazingly effective. It just really sets you up. This really bright color. Poor Yachty, they wouldn't let him even use the color cameras on the screen. He had to be black and white because we had to have all the color be for Tyler, right? It had to be all for him. And much like the GNX show started off with whacked out murals, they start off with Saint Chroma. When artists are loving an album and make an album and it has a meaning and a sense and it's a work of love, often it will follow the flow of the album itself. So of course it starts off with Saint Chroma. I leaned over to my daughter and said, now I'm excited. Because this is what happened. In the morning, I listened to Chromacopia again and I like it, but I realized I was not excited. I don't know. Maybe it's because I don't really like leaving, because my wife and I, we also have a 2-year-old and an almost 1-year-old right now, so like I feel bad for leaving her with the little ones, and I don't know, it's just all the kind of expectation and all the driving and dealing with all the traffic and Yonge Street and Spadina Street and Yorkie Street, all these places in Toronto that I just pronounced correctly. Queens, Quay. I know I got to deal with all these places and I got to find the hotel and figure out so I wasn't that excited. And I told him, and my daughter's like, I'm so psyched on the drive up. And I'm like, and she's like, are you? I'm like, not really. Way to go, Dad. Way to go, Dad. Why don't you just piss on my parade? I'm like, but you know what? Once we cross the border, I'll be more excited. And we crossed the border. She said, you excited now? I said, yeah. But, I didn't really sell it. But then the second that Chromacopia starts, oh my God, it was just like this weight had been taken off my shoulders. The beauty, the joy, the love of music just came out. And I was just so excited for 2 reasons. One, I love Tyler, the creator. I love this album. Truthfully, I love that I have an audience that cares what I think about this album, this concert. Like, that's so much fun. I'm just, I like, you don't even understand how fun it is to know that people care what I think about a concert. That's really great. Thank you very much. Smash like bucket, subscribe. AVAA stands for awesome video as always. Or you could just put love in the comments. And then beyond that, and I mentioned this in a show recently, when you are an old person at a concert for young people, there is a certain kind of joy you get. And it's a similar joy that like elderly people feel when they see babies. If you show like an 85-year-old person a baby, they lose their mind. And let's be honest, it's partly because they know they're close to death. And when they see someone close to life, of course it's a cute baby, but also it's a reminder, we're going to keep going, everybody. We're going to keep going. Humanity's going to keep going. We only have a couple of functions on planet Earth. One of them is to continue our species. And an old person sees a little baby and they know our species is good. That's how I feel as as a 47-year-old at a concert. I see all these young people. I see them excited for a good artist. I see them getting ready to go mosh pitting. I see them wearing their wigs and their fur hats. They're buying their merch bags, jumping all around. By the way, I didn't buy any merch because there was no merch for floor seat people. Get your shit together, Tyler. I would have bought the poster, a T-shirt. I would have done the whole thing. But anyways, it's okay. Just seeing that kind of excitement. So I also felt that just a wave over me. And it starts off, and there's Tyler in his green suit with his little epaulets. The video is great. So much attention to his gloves. Insane fireworks inside made me a little uncomfortable. My daughter said that her lungs were trying to escape. It was just gun smoke everywhere. But this opening reminded me of a thing to love about Tyler, which is, he's kind of a theater kid. This is like a theater performance. This is him thinking about his character, his little Saint Chroma character. But what I think is interesting is that the feeling to me during the rollout was that this Saint Chroma character was like, a bellboy, sort of like a lowly, like almost like a foot soldier. But when he's performing and he's marching and he has these epaulets and he has this suit, he actually felt a lot more like a dictator. He felt like an autocrat. He felt like somebody, like maybe, often when people come to power after a military coup, that's spelled C-O-U-P, after a military coup, they will wear their military garb as a reminder of their power. And this kind of felt like that. It sort of felt like the bellboy from the music video became the dictator, and he is there, and he has one demand, which is you have to feel the love. You have to feel the light. You have to feel the fire, the fire. I told you I'd be singing, and I was dancing, and I was screaming. My throat is still recovering from all the screaming because I was screaming, fire! Okay? Oh, my God. And then, Ratatata comes on. Oh, my God. And he's dancing and he's moving. He's got these great sort of like in-character, bizarre movements, just very liquid and stilted. And it's just brilliant. It's like there's this light on him at the end, like literally brilliant, that makes him feel, my daughter said, kind of biblical, just like this incandescent person. And I'm so close to the front of the stage that also I got what I call arm hair bass, where the bass was blowing back my arm hair. And it's just what a song. It's just this brilliantly hard song that makes you excited. And he's rapping every single word, and he's wearing the Chromacopia mask. Kind of reminded me of the Yeezus tour, which I also saw. At that point, it was called the Air Canada Centre, now known as the Scotiabank. Do banks make more money than airlines? But he was, the same way, just wearing a mask for the beginning, which is exciting and builds up a certain amount of tension. And then, of course, it has to lead right into Noid, and so much emphasis on his gloves and these fireballs everywhere. I made a video of him doing this dance during Paranoid. Man, he's a sensual dancer. He's a very, very sensual dancer. He's doing the kind of like the hip movement. It's interesting, too, because this song, obviously, it's a sample of an African song. See my video on Noid, which I released last year. But also, it sounds a lot like Black Sabbath. So it kind of made me think about Ozzy Osbourne and made me realize that the way that he is, the way that Tyler is during this show is actually very Ozzy Osbourne-ish, because Ozzy Osbourne would be mixing between being a sort of imperial dictator and an old man puttering around, which is basically how Tyler was here, but I'm not going to belabor that point. And at a certain point, there's this laser thing, which just reminded me there was an episode of the TV show Silver Spoons where he did a project and he used a laser, and it's probably the coolest thing I ever saw. At the end, he's talking about how paranoid he is and how tired he is. And this is what's interesting. My daughter said the same thing. He would be imitating distress, imitating sadness, imitating frustration. But you sort of felt bad for him the entire show because he's working so hard. And as my daughter said, in the beginning of the show, I felt bad for him. I can't tell if he's putting up a character of a distant soldier type person, but I felt sympathetic. And there was a degree to which when he's talking about how paranoid he is and how sad he is, you can't tell, is he just a theater kid putting on a performance, or is he telling us how he actually feels? The thing about the show, I'm going to move a little bit so that my head is better framed by the trees in the background. Yeah, and that way you get to see more birds. There's a great alternance. Is alternance a word? alternates, that's the word. He alternates between high energy and low energy. So the next song is Darling I, which is not like a low energy song. It's not Jeb Bush, but it breaks it up a little bit because there's a lot of singing here, lots of kissing on screen, including, men kissing men, which I'm always fascinated by how and when Tyler presents queerness. We'll talk more about that later. He does some basically Michael Jackson style footwork. This is where it becomes clear that his concerts are partly concerts and partly listening parties. To constantly and always give Kanye credit wherever I can, despite his many failings as somebody who is losing his battle with mental health. Like the idea that you would want to go and see somebody listen to their music with you, that was kind of a new thing. But that's kind of how this felt, because I don't think he was really in a position to be singing this. I don't think he could. I don't think he physically could sing this song and also do rat-ta-ta-ta the justice it needs to do. So it means he's basically doing mostly choreographed dancing, and most of what he's adding into the music is these woofs. So many woofs. I Killed You, very kind of hype energy, kind of jumpy. This is where I was reminded of the fact, do you know how many people are on a Tyler, the Creator concert stage? Okay. So first you have Tyler. Okay. Then you have 3 female dancers. All right. 3 male dancers. 1 guy who's dressed up as Jesus. No, there's just Tyler. There's just Tyler. That's it. The invoice for performers is Tyler, the Creator. Nobody. No guest appearances. No nobody. He is a singular figure. And I think it really works. And it's a testament to his ability to dance, to his ability to move. I was in awe of Kendrick's movements because he's able to move in a very cool way that's in rhythm but is never dancing. But because of that, he sort of needs dancers behind him. And I talked about that in my GNX concert review. But Tyler, he is big enough to fill up an entire stadium. It's impressive. Then he played Judge Judy, which is a weird song to play because it's like a story song. I think it's important. It's catchy. But I think this was just his chance to sit down, because he sits down at the edge of a container ship, and I think he needs it because he's putting on such an amazing dancing performance, and he's carrying the whole damn thing by himself. He can't point over and say, look at what this person's doing. He has to do it all himself. It was at this point that I encouraged my daughter to sort of go off on her own. We have a term in our family for when you try to get closer to the stage. It's called being a mean little pepper shaker. You just kind of like shake your way up front, and it especially works if you're not a tall guy. But, you just kind of like, you have to be a mean little pepper shaker, and that's how you get front. So she kind of does that, doesn't get super far. And then these 4 friends, not our friends, just 4 random people pepper shakered in front of me to separate me from my daughter. But it was just kind of funny because they were just these 4 women, and they were just dancing and singing the lyrics to each other, and it was great. It gave me that great old man feeling. And then at this point, a catwalk shows up, and Tyler starts walking across the catwalk. And then he starts playing Sticky, which, when the book is written on the last year and a half of hip hop, I think Sticky will come out as like one of the best produced songs of this era. It is such an amazingly produced song that does so many things right, that has so many voices, so many sounds, so many styles. And seeing him perform it up on the catwalk where he's just absolutely above you, and he's dancing across and he's moving, and he goes full Joker in 1989 Batman, throws out money, throws out money. I don't know if it's like real money or Tyler bucks. A video of a marching band going on, and this is just a true highlight of the show because the song is so great, and even when he's just dancing along to the other verses, you really feel it. It is also, for whatever reason, my 11-month-old has been whistling for like 2 months. I don't know how she figured out how to whistle. She goes like this. So she loves whistling. So we play this song for her quite a bit, so that made me happy. And then we get to Take Your Mask Off as he's crossing this catwalk to the second stage in the middle of the crowd. A very cool trick. That's kind of a medium energy bit to get to the next thing. I will say at this point, I think maybe there's too much of a backtrack. I think I would rather a little bit of silence because I feel like his voice on the backing track is too loud compared to his voice in person. But then he gets to the other stage, which is a cozy living room. Reminded me of seeing Guns N' Roses in 1993, the Use Your Illusion tour, where they had like a whole living room set up. If you saw that tour, get your prostate checked. I mean, get a colonoscopy, whatever it is. Just be uncomfortable in your butt. That's what it is, getting older, everybody. I don't edit my videos, he said to himself, as he regretted everything he just said. Then we get to tomorrow, where he comes out and he's out of his Chromacopia. He's just sort of like he's got this mustache, which I think is for his next album, which, by the way, he doesn't mention Do Not Top the Glass even once throughout the entire show. Not only does he not play a show, not only does he not play a song from it, he doesn't even mention it. He's got the gold teeth and the mustache and no mask, and he just looks like a dude. He really just looks like a dude. A well-dressed dude, but not like that well-dressed. And it's that whole song, My Mother's Hands Don't Look the Same, and the backing track's pretty strong here. And then he does this amazing conceit where he goes to a record collection and flips through his records. And at first, they're not Tyler records. I think I saw Sade there. I saw Black Eyed Peas. And there's a funny thing where people would clap for the bands that they knew and then be totally quiet for the ones that they didn't. So when Outkast came on, everyone just roared. And then for some of the other ones, it'd be sort of like obscure soul albums of the 70s or 80s, just be kind of complete silence. And so my daughter told me that there was a really funny thing where this guy next to her really wanted to be cool and just went, yeah, for one that no one was saying yeah to. Anyways, a great conceit because he pulls out the album Igor, and this is his way of saying this. Hi, my name is Tyler, the Creator, and I have a great catalog filled with records that you know. Everybody knows my great records, my greatest hits. You've been listening to my music forever. I don't want to play any of this shit. I don't. I want to play Chromacopia because I'm an artist, and I want to stay doing the stuff that I'm doing right now. I don't want to play Earthquake. I don't want to play Earthquake. I played Earthquake. You should have come and saw the Igor tour. You didn't? I'm sorry. Fine. Tickets are expensive. I'll play Earthquake. But he let the audience sing most of it. He seems tired of the song. He gets dressed while it's going on, full Mr. Rogers style, putting on his shoes. And this is where we get to this puttering phase where he is dancing and moving around, but he's in his living room and he's just kind of puttering around, putting on cologne, getting out records. He's giving this home thing. Are We Friends has got this great groove. This is the point where I noticed that they have little hi-fi speakers on the stage, and the attention to detail is such that they're plugged in. Where are they plugged in on the other side? Nowhere, right? But they give you that real feeling. Plays I Think, and then She, and then everything becomes from Goblin. Yonkers is a real highlight just because that song is such a big song for him. I love the rapping. It feels like there's no backtrack, but it's really just a listening party. We're just listening to this music that we love with the guy who made the music. Tamale, I don't have any notes here, but my daughter typed up some notes for me, and she wrote, straight gas. I was jumping the entire time. So if you saw someone jumping, that was my daughter. IFHY, very high energy, really fun. Fun singing along to it. And then Lumberjack, he extends out the sample in the beginning, which is funny because it's not like he found the sample. The sample's from 2 Cups of Blood by Gravediggers, ultimately based on the hi-hatchy beat from the Lafayette Afro Band, right? But anyways. Just get very excited for that. That's my favorite Tyler hit. So I was very excited to hear it in concert. And then we get to a funny point here where while I was driving back, I had my daughter look through my notes and help me sort of organize them. And what happens is I'm an old man who needs reading glasses. I'm in a concert. I don't want to put on reading glasses while I'm at a concert, especially if I'm in the pit. If I was finna be in a pit, which I was finna be a pit. I was finna be a pit. So because of that, I'm not going to sit there full Chuck Schumer. So my notes end up being garbled mess. So my daughter was reading them back to me, and we had this very awkward thing. Capital B, space in. What's your name? JJ. Jerking off on face motion. Cookies. Getting. Hop hop. 56034. Type. Capital V, space, capital C, capital D. That's what it looked like. So anyways, he did this sort of motion, the sometimes queerness of it. And then also there were cookies on stage, and I wanted to eat those cookies because I like cookies. And I wonder if there's someone who's in charge of the tour of making the cookies or if they're just props. And then we get to Dogtooth, the next thing that I wrote down, which somehow didn't get messed up, getting turned on Cunnilingus. That's why I find the song so funny, because like everyone's just singing along to all the lyrics, and it's really just about that. But please see my Don't Tap on the Glass video. This is the point where everything got a lot more excited. This was like the pit was really getting active. Sorry Not Sorry, he's just sitting on the couch and just chilling, but it's great because he's like leading into the rest of the Chromacopia stuff here. He's so tired and thankful. He like talks about how I've been touring since February and I'm almost at the end, and so like it's clear he's like tired and he doesn't want to do this anymore. And part of you's like, oh dude, I'm sorry, this is tough. And then part of you's also like, oh dude, I paid a lot of money to be here and I took a lot of effort to be here. So he turns it around and he just says, I just want to say thank you, and thank you to everyone in the nosebleeds. And the thing is that with this kind of show, this kind of effort, I do sincerely have sympathy for him, because like it must be absolutely brutal combo to try to do this. God damn. I mean, seriously. It's a lot of effort, a lot of emotional and physical effort. It makes you understand that if you throw in even a little bit of drugs, why superstars suffer from exhaustion and have to cancel tours. On the catwalk, he does Who Dat Boy. This was fun because I got to watch my my daughter go into the pit. And she has this kind of funny way of going into the pit where she acts like she's happily being swept out into the ocean. She's just like, she can't, I don't know. Anyways, she's going off to college in the fall. So you're going to have to understand that this old man remembers her when she was a little baby, and seeing her at a show going off into the pit is very nice. Thought I Was Dead is a good show. Like Him, just beautiful because it's such a meaningful song. I've been processing a lot of trauma lately in therapy, and I actually just been recently processing some trauma that I suffered at the hands of my father. So when you process trauma, it does really weird things because it's not straightforward. It like pops up. So, man, wiped out. I did not know if I was going to recover from this. But I did, because the next song was See You Again. He seemed kind of tired of the song. That was my daughter's note. And then we get to New Magic Wand, and this is my favorite part of this. I didn't know the song, right? So like New Magic Wand, that's kind of like, well, I kind of know it. But this was the best song on the album because it's just distorted and crazy. And my daughter decided to lose her place close to the front to go into the pit. And this pit was better than the World Scout Jamboree. And it was just wild and crazy and felt the energy. And I'm jumping. I'm almost mosh pitting. I almost just started pushing people around me, but I wasn't in the pit, so that would have been awkward, American professor is in jail today. So, yeah. It was great. And then he ends with I Hope You Find Your Way Home. Feels kind of biblical again. The bass is thumping so languid and wonderful. And he stands above a fan, full on 7-Year Itch, Marilyn Monroe style. And then he sings these lyrics and just repeats, your light comes from within, Chromacopia. And it was at that moment I finally understood Chromacopia. That's it. That's the definition. If I've spent a year trying to define the word Chromacopia, going into the etymology, Chromacopia, copious, utopia, all that stuff. It's a Tyler word for a Tyler sentiment. And the sentiment is, this is the dictionary definition of the word Chromacopia. Chromacopia. Your light comes from within. I finally get the album. Now the question is, my daughter said, did you think that was better than GNX? And do you know what I responded? Hell no. Hell no. Are you crazy? You think better than Kendrick? But my daughter said yes. In her mind, maybe it's because she's a bigger Tyler fan than I am, but in her mind, this was just the best, just absolutely amazing, just transcendent, just so much joy, the joy of concert going. So I'm sorry to say, but my answer is both. And it's a reminder that he is a true superstar. And sometimes we despair, everybody. Sometimes we despair at the nature of pop culture. We despair at the nature of anti-intellectualism. We despair at the fact that all of your Brett Boones and Aaron Boones and Benson Boones get so popular. But don't forget, Tyler, the Creator, sold out hockey and basketball stadiums all across the goddamn world. That guy who writes and produces and raps his own stuff and does whatever the fuck he wants all the time. He has all the artistic freedom and support he could possibly want from a massive audience that allows him to buy $4 million cars. It is great. It is great. Human civilization is doing pretty well if we have Tyler, the Creator, doing this well. As we walked back, I promised my daughter we would go to La Dipperie, the Dippery, which is like an ice cream place that we walked by on the way. And it was very nice. It was open. The guy there was working harder than Tyler, by the way. Just one guy working. And I got the La Dipperie, like the house special. And it's like this like dipped ice cream is great. Had some almonds on there. But it's a hot day. Even though it's raining, it's a hot day. And some ice cream falls off, and it falls on me, and it falls on the ground. And I just want to thank, if you are out there in Toronto, there were 2 women walking behind us wearing Chromacopia t-shirts, which we didn't have because they didn't have a merch tent for general admission. I just want to say thank you. You made my night complete. Because as the ice cream fell on my hand and fell on the ground, you said, "It's getting sticky." And I didn't even acknowledge your presence. I didn't even really connect why you said that at that point. But I thought about it afterwards. And my God, it was absolutely wonderful. So these are my Patreons. They help me to be able to afford to go to concerts. Got some new names on there. So thank you so much to everybody who supports me. I really appreciate it. It really means a lot. You might notice I have love and hate written on my hands. Here's a little movie lesson for you guys. Now, that's more famous to younger people as being from the 1989 Spike Lee movie, Do the Right Thing, where Bill Nunn plays a character called Radio Raheem, who does this whole dialogue about love and hate. You might not know that's actually based on a Charles Laughton movie starring Sleepy Bob Mitchum, called Night of the Hunter, which is a great movie, and he has that tattooed on his hands. And so that's the actual origin of the love and hate. I will include links in my description to both of the scenes from those movies. Educate yourself a bit. Enjoy cinema. All right, I've got to go record my hate bit now. How does that song go? Which one? Which one? Which one? Sticky! There's the camera.